Hello everyone, my name is Eric and I'm the developer of Virtuous Heaven, which is still a game about infinite dogs, radical friends and the end of history. Was able to remember the tagline a bit more quickly. Anyway, it's a bit of a late devlog video because, well, year change and I sort of forgot last week to do it and kind of a bunch of things, like administrative things kind of piled up over the first week of January, so trying to get on top of things now. And also December was kind of a weird month. So let's go through things. So the plan for December was to streamline the boss fight production process and to fiddle around with the overall game feel of the game. And what did I do? Mostly streamline the boss fight production process. I didn't do a lot of game feel twiddling because, well, on one hand I forgot, and on the other hand, well, the first half of December I was kind of in a very low energy state and frankly didn't get a lot of things done in general. So I was kind of glad that I did manage to do the boss fight streamlining things to kind of illustrate what I mean by that. And I think I mentioned it a little bit in the last video, is that my plan was to make something that is similar to the enemy archetype stuff that I did in October, but for boss fights, in that I wanted to create a generalized boss concept, as it says here on the slide, that is basically has a set of predetermined behavior patterns and movement patterns that I can then adjust and customize for each new boss fight that I'm going to make, with the goal or the hope being that having this basic pattern down and this basically selection of moves and the basic code for that and stuff like that will hopefully make it a bit easier for me to at least somewhat predict how long it'll take me to get a fight finished and to plan these things out, while also still having enough space to make these fights feel unique. Obviously, when you do something like this, where you say, okay, every boss will kind of have the same basic palette, so to speak, where they're going to choose things from, obviously, the first concern you might have, and it's a natural thing to think about, is, oh, but won't that make every fight feel the same and move the same and be the same? And obviously it's a risk there because of you can kind of if you can kind of see the patterns and whatever. But I think the way this is set up and the way I have there are certain things in the way these whole systems are set up where I can basically hook other things into them that should make it possible for me to make them more unique and kind of hide away the fact that these are all kind of working on the same principle. So basically what this is again, the main goal is to have a basic behavior done so that I don't have to redo the basic behavior, oh, it walks around, oh, it looks for checks for distance for an attack or whatever, or it switches between behavior patterns and all that kind of stuff. That these basic things that I don't have to rewrite then every time I have to do a boss fight, or and the same thing goes for if I say, okay, if a boss does is on the ground and does an attack towards the player, that there's a system now in place that basically says, okay, this this takes that many different goes through that many different states of animation. You can adjust the basically the frame when the attack happens, and it's it's reliable, and all I have to do to basically then customize this out is to change one or two values in the whole thing instead of like, again, rewriting the whole thing, which is or was usually something that I did, or I copied it over from a different boss fight and then had to kind of like work myself backwards towards like a more generalized thing and then re-specialize it. Whereas now I'm in a like I have a foundation, and hopefully I can always build up from this foundation for each boss fight instead of like building up, building down, building up, building down, building up, building down. So that's the idea here. Haven't done like one of those boss fights, so I'm not sure how well it will work. But I'm going to use this concept. I'm just going to see how it goes, right? But I think it was a good idea, and it was something, or it is something that I hope is going to make the actual production of the game much, much easier. Another thing I kind of noticed, and it's something I might have also in a way already talked about like in spring last year after like the whole demo, like it's not really a debacle, but I was like a bit disappointed how the demo went and how like flawed it was in a lot of ways, and how like I kind of burnt myself out in that time. And and it's something that I noticed, and it kind of goes to the idea of like, okay, I wanted to like fiddle around with the way the game feels when you do actions. I want to kind of like go through the whole like sound effects that I'm using, because I think I can do much more there to make it a bit more to give off a different impression than what the game currently has. And also other things that I'm not sharing here right now that are actually fairly substantial, that you'll hopefully will see in like about like 4 to 6 weeks, in a way that I'm doing. So I'm still like the thing about I want to go down to is like a thing I noticed, or a thing that actually I was thinking about yesterday. So it's technically not a December thing, but kind of like noticing that the thing, or like probably the parts of the game that make me feel I don't know, like slightly frustrated or dissatisfied when I play through the stuff that I've built so far, are things that I cannot fix by doing superficial changes over and over and over again. For example, like in general, like changing the sound effects won't change like the underlying way the overall game plays out. Like it doesn't really change the like way the movement system interacts, the larger scope of what the game is, or what the core of the game is supposed to be. Because honestly, I never really built this game with like a specific core impression in mind. And like and that's something I already talked about, I think, quite a lot, is that Witches Heaven kind of like grew out of like me fiddling around with like a platformer controller and just adding stuff to it because I thought it was cool. And then I thought, okay, this is kind of cool, I should make a game with this, and never really thinking about like what all of this was supposed to be for. And frankly, this is kind of how it plays. And this core is kind of, or will always going to be there. This kind of like initial flaw, so to speak, will always kind of be in the game. Doesn't mean that like the end result it will be a terrible thing or whatever, but this is more like me like being in this conflict between the expectations I have with this project, or I had with like the expectations I have like when I'm trying to create something, and what I see when it's basically being reflected back at me. And there's a discrepancy, and I think there's like a very, very deep discrepancy here that I cannot change by changing the sound effects, that I cannot change by like changing animations, changing timings, that I can't even really change by tweaking the movement physics in a specific way is because it's like on a much deeper level that would kind of mean for me to completely for these things to fix, I would actually have to sit down and basically remake the whole game, and that's not possible. And it's so weird talking about this sounds incredibly negative, right? Like, oh, this game is flawed and whatever, and like I'm not happy with what it is. But what I realized yesterday is that kind of like I'm okay with that now. It like I like for on one part understanding that whatever like surface level things I change on this game won't fix that thing, won't fix whatever I perceive as a problem there. It might not even be a problem. It might just be a me thing also. Which means that, sure, I can do these things and it's okay, but I also don't have to like be negative about these things, not really getting rid of this underlying sense of occasional frustration I have when I play this. On the other hand, there are like moments where I play this and I think, oh, it's working. So there's like, again, there's like a deeper lying structural problem here that I'm now in a state where I cannot ever really like adjust it in such a way, like in a quick and easy way. Basically, again, what I'm saying is, sure, I can change the sound effects, and I will probably do that, but this will not suddenly, or most likely will not magically transform this into a different game. I'm going to still do things because there are things that I want to change with it because I want to try things out and just want to see if, like, again, if it gets things a bit more coherent, a bit more like interesting for people to engage with. Whereas on a larger level understanding, this is the game that it's going to be, and it will be fine. It will be okay, and I can be okay with that. And that's more or less the thing I noticed yesterday. This part of like, sure, you're doing these changes right now. You're like tweaking around like on like marginal and like surface level things. But to understand, yeah, but it won't fix what might be bothering, and that's okay. Because the more important part for me right now is to move on from this and to move this project forward. And again, I'm in a situation where either I move this project forward or I go back, and I'm not going back. So this is what it's going to be. And like, this is like, again, the past few months were like all geared towards setting everything up in such a way that I can build something and finish something, while doing my best to make it obviously as good and as interesting as it can be, so that people might be interested in buying it and have a good time while they're playing it, and make something that resonates with people, and that, again, that says something, that expresses something, that gives people a place where they can express themselves. That's the entire point of the movement system, right? While also understanding that whatever weird thing is in my head that keeps wondering when I'm playing this and telling me, is this actually any good? What is this? Like, something's wrong here or whatever. Just being like, yeah, okay, but it's fine. It'll be fine. It'll be good. Well, judgment on good, but it'll be okay. It's such a weird thing to do. I just noticed to do a talk like this where you openly, as a game designer, talk about, yeah, what I'm making is probably going to be flawed, and doing that as part of like a, hey, I'm making this game that at some point I hope people will buy. But also, this isn't like an advertising thing, right? I'm not the kind of person that like runs around. Yeah, it's obviously, when I'm trying to sell this and when I'm setting this up, I'm going to do my best to not only express something and like express in its outward presentation something that I hope is going to what's a good word? Not really entice, but like interest people in what I have to offer here, and interest them enough that they hopefully give me at least some money for it, while also being completely honest about like the way like a project like this kind of goes sometimes. And I think this is like a thing, and you see it in a lot of games, right? That what you get at the end is very often at some point during a game's development, you, for whatever reasons, you get to a point where you kind of have to accept that what you make is what it is. You can still make it as good as you can be, but you can still kind of acknowledge that it wasn't really what I wanted it to be. And both of these things can be true. This might end up being an interesting thing at the end. Like, this is like up for other people to judge, not for myself. But this might be something that other people play and think, oh, this is kind of cool and I like it and whatever. Whereas you as a creator can still think, yeah, but it's not really what I would have liked it to be, right? So that this conflict can still exist, because in the end, I'm making something to put it out in the world, and obviously other people have other ideas about what they want from things, and these might not exactly be the same, because we're all different people. Anyway, this is me rambling a lot about something that that is, in a way, is a whole lot of nothing, right? Because it's not really a lot of stuff that I substantially did. It's just like a thing I noticed yesterday, and I thought, oh, why not put it in here and talk a little bit about it, because otherwise it would have been 2 slides and I was done. And we have to do these things, like I have to make these needlessly long, right? That's the whole thing of these videos, I guess. Again, rambling. But yeah, that's kind of like where I'm at. I'm okay with that. And I'm very much, because right now I'm seeing this is like going to what's planned for this month and what I'm already doing. It's kind of like this sounds like draw the rest of the owl, right? Put it all together. What I mean by that, and I think I talked a little bit about it in the last video, is the goal right now is to build out kind of like a smaller section of the rest of what the rest of the game's going to be. And in the process of that, I finished, like, in terms of like building it out and putting actual like graphics down and stuff like that. Finished 2 of those, 2/3 of it. I should be able to finish off the remaining part by the end of this week, but there's still a lot of other work to be done. Obviously, I need to do all the scripting. I need to like change a bunch of stuff, like in the back end of the game, that it works in the way that it's set up now. On the other hand, in parts, I'm very glad about some stuff that I did for the demo version last year, because, for example, I don't have to redo the options menu and the controller rebinding, because that stuff still works. There are still like some other parts that I have to fiddle around with that might be a bit more complicated. So I have no idea how long it'll take. When I did a list about, okay, this is what I need to do to basically get a new kind of like sort of demo test version thing going that I wanted to do with the scope that I had in mind. When I wrote this down, I kind of saw noticed that this is probably going to take more than a month. So it probably take like into February. But that's okay, because what this is and what I want this to be, again, is kind of like a test run of how long and how complicated and whatever the rest of the game's production process is going to be. Because after that, after this run, I kind of know, okay, these are the things that I have to keep in mind. This is how long it will probably going to take me. These are the potential problems that I might run into while building these things. I noticed a lot of things in terms of like background art and the parallax system that I built like 2 months ago, whatever. Like last week I noticed, oh yeah, sure, it works for the initial area, but it doesn't work for like the other levels or the other areas that I built. So I had to make some changes, and I have to change my expectations and my general like ideas for how I want the areas to look like, how I want the background arts and whatever to work. And again, the other part, and going back to the thing I just mentioned, is like I spend a lot of time thinking about, oh, how is this area supposed to look? What do I want to do for like the background graphics, and I'm kind of like weirdly obsessed with like having nicely scrolling larger backgrounds and whatever, when I'm mostly building areas that are honestly fairly claustrophobic, which where there isn't really that much space and that much room to actually really show these entire systems to work. So, and again, and then it's the question, do I adjust the map size and the area sizes and the screen size and whatever else to accommodate this obsession with me having these sort of elaborate ideas of how I want this to look? Or do I just make the other part simpler and be okay with it not being this big, needlessly complicating thing? And going back to that other part of like, superficial changes won't completely change the core of what the game is. So be okay with that and don't go overboard with this stuff. You'll see how in some ways this is kind of like, yeah, you'll see once this is done, because the plan is right now and in general, like for the next video, and I can kind of like wrap this up, the next devlog probably won't be immediately at the beginning of February, because I kind of want to finish this part. I want to finish building out this area and turn it into a presentable state, and then most likely release it as a demo for this game again. Obviously not tied to any like Steam Next Fest or whatever stuff, because I did that last year and you can only do that once. But just in general, just to have something up again, and kind of tie that into sort of like a relaunch of the Steam page as well. Like you might have noticed like something that happened because for various reasons. For example, I removed the game's trailer. I have to redo a trailer, and stuff like that, and kind of ramp the whole like marketing and PR stuff like back up, because I kind of like, as while I was kind of questioning this whole project, I kind of like stepped away from like actively like pushing this game, because like when you're not even sure if you're like going to finish it, why push it? However, since I'm now in a much more like stable state in that regard, I feel like, okay, now I can start pushing it again, or like once I have this done and have like an idea, okay, this is what it's going to be like, this is how I'm going to present it, this is how I'm going to communicate this stuff. This is when the next video is going to be, which will be about that. And most likely when you see how, especially what like the demo looks like and the rest looks like, you will probably understand why I did this. Again, I kind of want to keep some things for myself, because there are like parts that I'm doing right now where like I'm fairly certain that I'm going to keep using that kind of like approach, but we'll have to like, I'm at this point, I'm very, very hesitant to immediately say, oh, I made this decision and I'm now pushing it in that way, because I flipped around so many times that I'm just not, that I just don't want to keep doing this. I don't want to say things about like how I want to make this game and what it's going to be like, and then a few months later decide it will be something completely different. Obviously, there's no guarantee that this will never happen, or that this is going to be it for real this time. Yeah, please. Who knows? But I don't want to keep repeating this kind of mistake. So I'll put it out, finish this demo area that I have in mind, and then with that release, with that push, because at this point, when I'm doing that step, this is also me saying, and this is what this is going to be. And so again, this is kind of like the decision-making process behind that part. Yeah, there might be like a few weeks more than a month of like silence. Maybe it'll take until March, because again, I want this to be like in a stable and presentable and good state, and I want everything else to be in place as well, so that I can kind of do this all in one large push instead of like this trickle of information and stuff. However, and this is not on the thing, if you really want to get a maybe slightly earlier look at an unfinished version of this prototype thing, patreon.com/Mokograd for $5 per month. One part that you get is you will get an earlier look at the demo before it goes public, because that's something I did. Like right now, it's obviously not there, but it's planned for me to do that. I'm also behind on posts there, but anyway, this is like completely different things. Again, a lot of administrative stuff, because I kind of immediately jumped into, okay, let's build out this area without clearing off the make a devlog, like the larger outreach and communication stuff. So I kind of have to like go back to that. And yeah, if you like want to follow along, you can follow @Mokograd on Twitter. That account still exists. You can follow @Mokograd on Co-host. That account also exists. I might also do maybe a Mastodon account for that. Who knows? I found a new place for my email newsletter. You can find that newsletter at buttondown.email/Mokograd. Not very happy with the interface there, and I find Button Down kind of annoying with communication towards me as a user, but who knows? It's fine. You can get it there. There will be something soon. Again, another thing I have to do. Obviously, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more updates. Feel free to wishlist Witcher 7. It'll come. I'm fairly certain of this, unless the outside world decides that it does not want to want me to finish the game. I will do what I can to make this game happen, because I need this for my own peace of mind, and also, it'll be okay. And it'll be a fun thing. It'll be about the end of the world. Isn't that great? Anyway, I hope you have a nice month. The days are getting longer again, so it's not that long until summer. Cool. Isn't that great? Winter is almost basically over, even though it has just started. Why am I still talking? Have a nice month. See you around. Goodbye.